Hey guys, I just got off work, but I really quickly want to talk about my January wrap-up. First thing I read was called The King's Concubine by Anne O'Brien. This was my first read of Book Outlet books. I was really happy with their condition except for that little mark they make. This book was about a girl named Alice Pierce, and she becomes the king's mistress in kind of a roundabout sort of way with the permission of the queen. Kind of an interesting lead up to that, and then afterwards she has to keep that position and kind of not care what the court has to say about it, and she has several children for him. I won't spoil the end or anything, but really interesting book. I always think the lives of these women are interesting. They have a lot of responsibility and political pull, but they're using their body to get it, but that is what women needed, and these women tended to have ideas about politics, and they had to sway the king one way or other, and she is often consulted by other people to try to get the king to think one way or the other. So it was an interesting read. I liked it. Very Philippa Gregory, but The King's Concubine. I gave this book, I would give it a solid 4 out of 5 stars, I think. Then I read The Valley of Amazement by Amy Tan. This is a book about a girl in China who, growing up, her mother owns a prostitute house, a brothel, basically, and she lives in it. She's half American, so she has this idea that she's better than these Chinese women working there, but eventually she gets sold and stolen away from her mother and sold into another brothel and has to work as a prostitute basically for her living, and it's just about her life, and then also about her mother's life eventually as well. They get separated, and mostly focusing on her, though I don't want to spoil the ending. But I would give this book 2.5, 3 stars. I would do 3 stars on this book. I struggled with it, and maybe it was just the time that I read it, but I really wanted a book that I could sink into, and I just couldn't sink into this one. I think this culture is really interesting, but this is a heavy book, and about halfway through I was wishing it was over. I stuck it out and read it to the end. Some things just would abruptly cut off, and you're like, okay, I just started finally getting into something and you stopped, right? I don't know. I haven't read The Juliet Club by Amy Tan, and that is, I think, her most popular work to date. So if anybody has read that, comment down below and let me know what you thought of it, or about any other of her works, including this one. I just really struggled. I thought I was going to love Amy Tan because she writes about a subject matter I'm interested in, but I didn't like it. It was really slow, and I would really have to be pushed to read another book by her. Especially this one it's heavy. It's like a hefty book, and I've read books that are a lot thicker than this that I fly through, but this one just seemed to take forever. Let me know if you guys have any thoughts or comments about it. Then I listened to Juliet, Immortal. I don't know if you can see that cover. There we go. There, if you can see that cover, which is by Stacy J. And this was an audiobook. I was intrigued in the beginning, and the end was just, I didn't care anymore. I picked this up on the Overdrive app, which is a library rental app. I only ever rent audiobooks from them, but I am pretty much always listening to an audiobook, and it's a free rental through my library, so that's nice. I'm really glad I didn't buy this book. It's a retelling of Romeo and Juliet with the premise that Romeo murdered Juliet to gain immortal life, and now they are pitted against each other for eternity, fighting for true love. So they're sent to Earth, and they inhabit other people's bodies that are around these people that are supposed to be or have true love. And not everybody has true love, so they have to seek out their aura and get their aura to burn for this other person, and Romeo works against it, and Juliet works for it. But there's all these other kind of mythical things happening around them, or magical things, and very quickly into this mission for both of them, they realize that something is different this time around, and they have to figure out what it is. So I really liked the premise. I thought I was going to enjoy the book, and the beginning was really interesting. I liked the narrator, but at the end, it was so much back and forth, and there was some insta-love that I didn't quite believe, and I don't like the way it ended. I know there's another book set in Romeo's perspective, and I don't think I'll pick it up. Just don't care enough to do it. So I would give this 3 out of 5 stars. And then on my iPad, I read Highland Surrender by Tracy Borgan. I read it in a day. Basic romance novel, but I like Highland, Scotland, so I read it. 2 people forced to marry. She thinks that her family is the right of it. He thinks his family has the right of it. They find out things later, some political intrigue. Basically, a mass market romance novel. For what it was, I would give this one a 4 out of 5. Not 4 out of 5 comparing it to like a grand scale novel, a 4 out of 5 comparing it in its category as a mass market romance. I like reading them on my iPad because I don't necessarily need to own a physical copy of this. They're like 99 cents to free sometimes, so that's an iPad purchase for me. I don't mean to diss this at all. I love these books. I read them quite often, but you need to rate books based on what kind of book they are. So for a mass market romance novel, 4 out of 5 stars. Then to finish up this month, I read 1000 White Women, The Journal of Mary Dodd by Jim Fergus. This is really interesting. It's about a woman who leaves her family and to run away with a man that she loves that her family won't approve of, and she has 2 children with him. They run into money problems, and she comes from a family of class premises that he maybe somehow gave up or let her family take her. Her family comes in with guards and takes her children to be raised under their roof, and puts her in a insane asylum for having promiscuous thoughts, because they could do that to women at this time period. And she hates it there. They abuse her, they rape her, nothing is ever treated there. You know, insane asylums at this point in history were not a good place to be. No treatment actually happened, and basically they thought she was a godless, moralist woman who, you know, was living with this other man. So to escape this asylum, she signs up for a government program where the Cheyenne Indians want to marry white women because they see that integrating their cultures is best for their future. Apparently, this request was actually made by the Cheyenne Nation's leader to President Grant. No. I don't remember what president was. Anyway, the request was turned down, but this book is kind of based off, what if it was true? Well, instead of sending, 1,000 nice white women, educated women, they go to prisons, they go to insane asylums, they go to the dregs of society to dig up these women that have no other prospects, that they don't care about anyway, and frankly, they don't want to deal with. So she forges her family's signature and signs up for this program and uses it as an escape to get out of this asylum. So she goes and marries an Indian, and the deal is you have to have a child with them, and you're supposed to be able to live with them for 2 years, and then if you want to come back home, you can, or you can stay and live with the Indians. But during this time, the reservations are starting to take effect. The government is starting to cut off Indian lands. They're finding gold on Indian lands, and they're trying to take it away. Living with the Indians is very savage. Everybody thinks very poorly of these women for making the decision to go do this. It was interesting. I like the writing style. It's written as a journal, and then it's written as letters. But I think she used the letters to talk to her family rather than actually being sent, because she's out in the middle of nowhere. There's no post. So it's written, it's her journal, and then at the very beginning and then at the end of the book, it's written as if an ancestor of hers found this journal and then tracked down her history. So it was an interesting book. It's a little bit long, I think, for the premise. For everything that happens, I think it's a little bit long. And a little bit slow at times, but it is a journal and a memoir. I would give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So for me, this month wasn't a great reading month. I had a lot of really crappy things happen, and I didn't read very many good books, and I only read 3 physical books. But next month I'm looking forward to reading new things. I've got new books. I'm doing a couple read-alongs I'm really excited about, and it's gonna be a better month for me all around. But thanks for watching, guys. Comment down below.